Welcome back. Great to have you with us on South Africa tonight. The rapid development of artificial intelligence has opened up great opportunities for the world, but also risks for governments and businesses. Cliff Decker Hofmeyr, the law firm, has warned that at present there's no comprehensive legislation or framework to govern the use of AI. For more, I'm joined now by the head of technology and communications, that sector at Cliff Decker Hofmeyr, Tayyibah Suliman. Ms. Suliman, thank you for being with us. So what sort of dilemmas does government face in trying to control the darker sides of AI, I guess?
So much of the utilization of AI is at its inception, which means it's difficult to anticipate for all of the challenges that are faced across various areas of the law, be it in terms of data protection, IP infringement, and how those are actually going to manifest based on the way that the tools actually are used, implemented, and potentially used for insidious or in some form of malfeasance. So it's quite challenging for any regulatory authority. We're seeing it out in the EU to actually implement regulations, implement law, because often technology advances far exceed the pace of actually implementing law.
I'd love your take on this because it's a real live example. I have been used and other news anchors have been used and have been altered. Our voices, they're deep fakes along with Elon Musk. It's a fake investment scheme. It's been all over YouTube. It's been on Facebook. Is there any law to govern something like that? It's an investment scam.
Yeah, so in terms of existing intellectual property laws across the board, in terms of your image rights, there are laws that do afford some protection, that it would be in violation, deepfakes are in violation of existing intellectual property laws. The difficulty is with the implementation and of that law and enforcement of that law. So it's identifying who those perpetrators are. Often there are cross-border challenges in terms of who the perpetrators may be. It would be difficult to identify them and difficult to enforce the law or to bring them to account in the courts. So the challenge is as much enforcement as opposed to whether there are existing laws that will protect individuals. And that will continue to be a challenge for anybody in terms of deep fakes. I think what we will probably hope to achieve is actually other technology developments that assist with verifying deep fakes and, in fact, actively being able to remove deep fakes from the internet and the darknet, if at all possible.
Surely pressure could be brought to bear on the social media companies if they don't pull down deep fakes, if they know they are deep fakes.
So what we find, for example, in the case of Taylor Swift, she has the financial wherewithal, she has the fame to be able to put pressure on the likes of a social media platform. For individuals who don't necessarily have that leverage, it's perhaps not always as easy to interact with social media platforms in a way to ensure that they actively remove deepfakes. There has been some degree of success, but at the same time, there's a long journey to go on with social media platforms to hold them to account. And we've seen them sort of come under scrutiny from various data protection watchdogs across the world. And I'm not necessarily seeing an active change in terms of how they're managing deep fakes for the average person.
Yeah, and they're only going to become more and more prolific. So if we don't have any legal framework in place, does any country, or is the whole world trying to get a grip on this?
So the EU has recently struck an accord across the member states in terms of how they intend to regulate AI. And at the core of that is transparency in terms of the sources of data and being able to report on that. We are seeing some sort of regulations out of Germany in terms of protecting employee rights. And in some states in the United States, there are some regulations that are emanating. But there isn't necessarily consistency in terms of whether, governing bodies, whether they're states or actual governments, want to implement regulation, because the risk is always that you're going to prevent innovation. And so that juxtaposition is very difficult to regulate for. But I think we're going to take some learnings from the New York Times suing ChatGPT for infringement. The Italian watchdog is also saying that ChatGPT is infringing on data protection laws. So when some of those matters come to fruition and to finality, we'll probably see more concrete opportunities to regulate.
Yeah, it's often about legal precedent. So AI can be used for the good. Is it being used for forensics, for disciplinary proceedings? Are companies using it for the good?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, not necessarily just companies, but NPOs. Our firm has recently participated in a gender-based violence app that uses an AI chatbot to support women in reporting and getting support in the cases of gender-based violence. So there's absolutely a place for the beneficial use of AI. It is being used in forensic investigation. So, for example, if you've got a terabyte of data that needs to be assessed and evaluated, and to be able to take steps to eradicate fraud or any challenges in a business, discoveries in terms of litigious proceedings, and even in terms of recruitment and disciplinaries, there are absolutely AI tools that are beneficial, that are supporting organizations in terms of the advance of their technology portfolio.
All right, thank you so much. So how will AI be regulated? We don't know, because we don't know where AI is going or how powerful it will become and its consequences. That was Tayyibah Suliman, Director in Corporate and Commercial Practice and Head of Technology and Communications Sector at Cliff Decker Hofmeyr.